everybody, thanks for coming to my channel. I have a project that I want to show you and then a quick tutorial following the walkthrough here. I use the Mother's Day collection, which is a paper collection from Country Craft Creations, and that's the only place that you can purchase this collection. It's a really nice paper. It is double-sided, and you get, I don't even remember how many sheets, but she usually includes 3 of each paper in her collections. So what I did was I started with a pre-purchased or pre-made box. It's hinged and it just opens up, and inside was another box, the same pattern but just smaller, that fit inside. And so this is a real, I think it's what we call it, MDF or something, I don't know, but it's a real strong box, and I wanted it to be a memory box. And so I took out the smaller one, which I believe measured 7 by 7 by 3 maybe. So I didn't use the big one for this project. I used a small one, and I made a Mother's Day box. And so let me show it to you this way first. So I covered all of the box with the paper, and I just used art glitter glue to attach it. Now I did lightly sand just a little bit, just in case. I wanted to make sure that it adhered. But I have some wood corner pieces. These flowers are from Country Craft Creations. There's two different ones. They're both Prima. I did have some bling that I added to make it real pretty. I have a little pearl right here. This is something I purchased at a, estate sale. They had a bunch of these little ceramic pill, I think they were pill boxes, and they open up. This one won't open because I glued it down, but it was all Victorian looking things. So I had an umbrella and a chair, a Victrola, and then this little purse. And so I put the purse on there, and then I just adhered a butterfly from the collection in the corner. I have this mint colored doily underneath. And then when you open it, I still need to add probably a corner pocket right here so you can tuck things. But I just adhered paper to the inside also. Yeah, I think I'm going to put an angled pocket here. And then on the inside, I just wanted a small book to put some pictures, and I'll probably make some envelopes and decorate them and put them in here too, so I can put some paper, notes and verses and sayings and quotes, maybe small pictures. This is not a real big album at all. As a matter of fact, I believe it's 4.5 by 5. Let me double check so I don't tell you wrong. Yep, it's 4.5 by 5. And I did just a little bit of decorating because, again, the paper's so pretty, I wanted to focus on that. So this is actually made out of lightweight chipboard. This is what I'm going to use, the lightweight chipboard, kind of the consistency of a cereal box. I did put some trim on the spine. Okay. I have some, what's it called? Spectrum Noir Sparkle, and you use a paintbrush and you just paint it over like flowers and stuff and paper, and it gives it a really pretty sparkle. So you probably don't see this, well, maybe you see a little bit. I put some of that on the butterflies and on some of the flowers on the inside of my book. Just a slight, like a swirl here with pearls, a little heart here with a pearl on it. These hearts came from Country Craft Creations. They're Prima also. Let's see if I can find it. Yep, this is what I use. They're mother of pearl. And then I have 2 layers of the butterfly, so I glued one on top of the other and just put a little bling piece there. I have double seam binding for the closure. It's just a tie closure, but I have a cream colored and a pink color to tie it. Now when you open it, let me move this off to the side. Now it's this little mini album that I'm going to show you how to make. It's really easy and fast. Like I said, I wanted it simple because I'm going to add envelopes to my box also. But I think this is just the right amount of decorating, not too much. Now when you open it, it is a mirror image on each side. So I have just very little decorating. I wanted the paper to be the focus, and I don't do that very often. But this is a silver metal piece on the 2 corners that I just glued down. And these are the cut aparts. So these are just waterfalls. And so, like I said, it's a mirror image as far as what I did on the left side and the right side. But the paper is absolutely gorgeous. Now I did not add any paper to the back because I used the Shimmer Artisan cardstock, and so that is beautiful in itself, and I didn't want to cover all of it up, and I didn't want the bulk of my book to be too much. So these do close with a magnet. On the left here, I had some of the silver shimmer paper from the, I think it's the My Colors cardstock. I'm not 100% sure, but it's from the store. And I fussy cut one of the flowers, and then I backed it in pink and in the shimmer ivory. And I just made that like a little pocket and put one of the cut aparts behind it. This is a flap. It doesn't have any kind of closure because it goes the full length. It does lay down. But I thought this would be a good place for a small photo. And I used paper that I could easily write on up here because it was more light. So this would be more for journaling, and then a place for a larger picture. This does open, and you have another flap on this side that opens. And again, I used a light color paper from the collection on the top so I can write on it. Larger photo opportunity here. And then I just put a little pocket, and this is just one of the cut aparts. Okay. And the other side is exactly the same. It's a mirror image. So here's my cut apart, or it's not a cut apart. I fussy cut one of the flowers, a larger one, and matted it twice. That's the silver paper. And then when you open it, it has the two flaps that open. Again, light colored paper on the top for journaling, pictures, pocket. Okay. Now this particular book has a 3/4 inch spine, and I think the one that I make with you is going to have a 1 inch spine because it is pretty full. I mean, it's just right the way it is. But if you add pictures, I think it might get a little alligator mouthish. Is that what you call it? So as I do the tutorial for this little book, I'm going to go ahead and make it a 1 inch spine. So if you are interested in making this little book, which is a quick make, and it will be a great little gift for someone, a brag book for a grandparent, maybe even for some senior pictures, you'll need 2 pieces of 4.5 by 5 inch. Let me double check that. Ooh, good thing I checked. It's 4.5 by 5.5. 5.5. All right, let me double check because I wrote it down. I'm confusing myself. Okay, let me try that again. It is 4 1/4 by 5.5. Okay, 4 1/4 by 5.5. So get 2 of those. That's a lightweight chipboard, and then do a 1 inch by 5.5 inch piece for your spine, and go ahead and put adhesive on the back. I'm going to use score sheets, and then I'm going to mat this the way I used to mat. Because it's the thin chipboard, I don't always use the new technique of wrapping each piece separately. So I'm going to lay all of these out on one piece of paper and wrap the whole thing like we used to do. Okay, so go ahead and get your chipboard ready, and then we'll get started. So I think what will be easiest is if we do the cover first, and then we'll go cut all the pieces and score them for the parts on the inside of the book. So we're using our 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch pieces of chipboard, and then this one is 1 inch, which is the spine. And I am using my spacers from Country Craft Creations, and I'm going to place my chipboard on a 7.5 by 12 inch piece of paper to wrap it. So I'm wrapping it as one whole book instead of doing the 3 separate ones. So the 1 inch gives you a border on the top and on the bottom, or on the side. And I'm going to take off all the backing. I had to piece the score tape on this one. I don't like to waste any of it. So I have little pieces here. I got to take off the backing. And when you use score tape, it does give you a smoother cover, which is nice, even though you're covering it with paper. All right, so you just want to bump this up against here so that you have your 1 inch border. Now, usually we put a 1/4 inch gap between our pieces of chipboard. I am going to lay down a piece of 1/4 inch score tape, but I'm actually not going to leave it a full 1/4 inch space, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I gotta find this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and place a 1/4 inch piece of score tape right up against that chipboard. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and take that backing off now. There we go. And when I place my spine on there, I'm just going to put it a little bit over on the adhesive so that it's not a full 1/4 inch gap. I think 1/4 is a little bit too much, so closer to, you know, in between 1/8 and 1/4, so about 3/16, I guess. Now I'm going to go ahead and place this back up on the top so I know that I'm putting it in the right spot. So I'm just overlapping just a hair. Okay, so you can see that it's not a full 1/4, but it's a little bit larger than an 1/8. Let's go ahead and put another piece of score tape on the other side of that spine piece, right up against that chipboard. Go ahead and take off the backing. Again, we want to keep that level straight, so I'm going to place the 1/4 inch border up there. And when I place this piece on, I'm going to overlap it onto that score tape just a little bit so I have about the same spacing as the first one. There we go. Okay, so just a little bit of an overlap. And then I'm going to turn it upside down and just make sure it's burnished real well. Okay. So let's go ahead and finish our cover. So if you're used to doing it the new way, you have to kind of remind yourself, oh wait, how do I do that again? So what I like to do is bend my paper so it has a little bit of a memory here as to where it needs to go, and I bring it up and over so it's right up against that chipboard. And then I'm going to take my burnishing tool and just give it a good burnish. And I'm going to do that on all 4 sides. I just bring it up and over, and then I burnish it. If you have not used this Glimmer Artisan cardstock, you guys, it's awesome. It's beautiful. It's got just the right amount of shine. It's easy to work with. It burnishes really nice. I don't see any cracking. Now, people do their corners different. I like to miter. Some people like to cut out the squares. You do whatever feels comfortable to you. But I use my X-Acto knife. Excuse my arm there, gross. And I have a tool that helps me so that I don't cut off too much, because you do want a little bit of space between. You don't want to cut it straight up against the chipboard corner unless you're doing the square. Then you can go right to the corner. If you're mitering at an angle, you need to leave about 1/8 of an inch of paper, and I'll show you once I cut this. So you can see I did not go straight to the chipboard corner. I have a little bit of extra paper there. So do all 4 corners. Again, if you feel more comfortable doing the cutting out the square, go for it. Okay. Let me put this away. Put this away. I like a clean work area if possible. Okay, so I like to put the score tape around the perimeter of the chipboard and the paper. Some people have moved on to glue, and I still use glue, but not on the whole thing. I just use it on part of it. We'll go back and burnish the tape here in just a second. And I just go straight across. I don't stop and cut off in between the chipboard. I just go straight over. And do the same thing on the perimeter of the cardstock. So it lays down nice and flat when you bring it over. I didn't get really to the edge on this one, but that's okay. I like to go right to the edge of the paper normally. I have a new roll of tape, and so it's hard to handle. I mean, when it's that fat, I have a hard time working with it in the beginning. Alrighty. So that's all I need with the score tape. I'm done with that. Alright, so now I do the long sides first, and I'm going to wrap it so I bring the paper up and over. I am going to put glue in between the chipboard and the score tape I have at the edge, and I'm also going to put a line of glue right up against the chipboard so that the paper sticks to it really nice and I can smooth it out and get a real clean finish. So I like to put this on and let it soak a little bit or get into the fibers. So now I'll take the backing off. Of my score tape. And we're going to have to do a little bit of the sides too, otherwise it will get stuck. Alright, so now I'm going to go fill in some glue in between the chipboard and the score tape on my Artisan cardstock. As you bring it up and over, you're going to want to smooth it out. Get that out there. Smooth it so that it's a nice, no ripples. And then go ahead and take your burnishing tool and press it down real well. And then I lift it and I take my burnishing tool and go around that edge to make sure the paper's sticking to that chipboard on the edge there. If you don't use Artisan, do be careful. I don't know how strong your paper is, and so I can be a little bit more rough, I think, with my paper, just because I know it's strong and has some fibers in it. So I'm going to do the opposite side now and put glue up against the chipboard. And in between. Give it a second to get into the fibers on that edge. Bring it up and over, smooth it out. I like to bring my hand up and out. Now when I just use glue, that's why it's sometimes hard for me, is because when I go up and out I feel like it doesn't really always adhere real well until I get my burnishing tool. Then it sticks real well, but I like to make sure that it's laying down really flat and so I can smooth it and not have to deal with the glue not being all the way dry. Okay. Now because I miter my corners the way I do, I have to do an extra step that you won't have to do if you did squares. Because there's excess paper on the corner, I'm just going to push it in and flatten it out so that it covers the corner. And sometimes people use their fingernail just to make sure that it goes around that corner. And you can also use your burnishing tool if you have one, that might help. And we'll do it the same way. With our glue. lift that over. And burnish that. Put some glue on there. The cover's the first thing they see, so you want to make sure it's as smooth and as nice as possible. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get my other end ready by pushing down those little pieces around the corner of my chipboard. Take off the backing. And glue. All right. Now there's one other piece of cardstock we're going to use with the cover before we get into burnish or getting our other pieces ready, and that's just a piece to cover our spine. So that spine piece is 2.5 by 5 3/8. Okay. No scoring on this. You are going to want to cover this either with score tape or a score sheet, or fully put score tape on it. I like score tape better than glue. I have some 1 inch here that I'm going to use. Because we don't want it to buckle and look tacky. And I'm just going to use this to cut off that tape straight. And then I'll need another one in the center, but 1 inch will be too thick. So I have 3/8. Alrighty. I'm going to burnish that. So before I did it this way, I used to put tape all on the inside. It just on the actual book. It makes more sense to me now just to put it on the piece of paper. Then it's exactly where you need it to be. We want to cover the spine piece and try and evenly space it on either side, top and bottom, because it's 1/8 of an inch shorter than the height of our book. And you'll see that this book really does come together quickly because of the size, and the inserts and stuff really easy scoring and putting it together. Sometimes the book doesn't have to be all tons of flips and flaps and interaction. Sometimes you just want it to be kind of simple, so it focuses on the pictures and the paper, really. All right, and put it down and smooth it out. Now we do want this book to fold nicely, so we're going to take our bone folder, and I have one. Now again, you have to be careful with the paper you're using, because if it's not artisan, it may not be as strong. So I can kind of get in there and make sure that I burnish it real well to get it to fold. Now there's a certain tool that I like. Oh, here it is. So I like to use this one. And as I bring my book up, the cover, I'm going to start tucking the paper into that crease where the cover and the spine come together, where we left that little space. Okay. And I'm going to do the other side also. Bring up the cover and start tucking that paper into that gusset between the cover and the spine. Alright, and so there is, you can see I have a little bit of glue on here, but look at how smooth that cover is. super smooth. Okay, so now let's get all of our pieces ready. Let's put this off to the side and get all of our cardstock ready and scored. So I do not type up the measurements in the description box like some people, just because of how time consuming it is. But it's a easy thing just to stop and write things down in a notebook so that you have it. So let's go through all the measurements of the paper, and I will I'm going to kind of do the burnishing at this, or the scoring at the same time. All right, so you're going to need 2 pieces that are 5 by 5.5. Now when you see how I write this on my sticky note, when I have a line coming from the number 5, that means put the 5 inches across the top of your scoreboard, and you're going to score at 1/2 and 3/4. Okay, so 2 of them at 5 and 5.5, because of the mirror sides, the left and the right are the same. So that means put 5 inches across the side, take your scoring tool and score at 1/2 and 3/4 on both pieces. Okay, that's one set. You're going to have waterfall pieces, so you're going to have 3 flips on each waterfall, so you need a total of 6. They're going to measure 4 1/4 by 4 3/4. You're going to place the 4 3/4 inches across the top of your scoreboard and score at 1/2. So the long side across the top, 4 3/4, score all of them at 1/2. Do that to all 6 pieces. Now you might decide that you want to do something different with your flaps of your waterfall. Like I have a punch that I like to use sometimes. I like to use the scallop, and so I'm going to scallop punch the corners like so. You don't have to do that, obviously. It's personal preference, or you might have a die you want to use to give it a fancy edge. But you do it on the side opposite of your score, obviously. Mine gets kind of stiff. I have to kind of push it out once I'm done using it. So once I squeeze, it kind of stays in that position. I don't know why. Ugh. Uh-oh, now it's really stuck. There we go. Wonder why it's doing that. Ugh, I do not like that. Let me empty it real quick. And sometimes when I look at it after I punch it, I'm like, ooh, that doesn't look right. So I got to put it back in there, like this one doesn't look right. All right, there's all 6. All right, so there's my edges. That was your waterfall. Now we do need the closure for the waterfall. It was that long strip. And so you'll need 2 pieces that measure 1 1/8 by 6. And you're going to place that 6 inches across the top and score at 1/2. Okay. There are 2 other flaps that you're going to need. This is the one that I had, the flowers that I fussy cut. So you'll need 2 of them. You don't want them the full length of your book, because you want a little bit of space so that it closes nicely without bumping up against the paper. So you'll want 4 5/8 by 5.5. 2 of these, and then you're going to place the 4 5/8 inch side across the top of your scoreboard, and you're going to score at 1/2. If you want, you can miter these or do something fancy with these corners also. On these, you are going to want to cut a slightly miter on that 1/2 inch. Like so. There's probably another one we should have done that on. We'll go back and fix it. So the narrow flaps, the ones that you can write on or have it for journaling and a small picture. 4 of those that measure 3 by 6. And on the 6-inch side, you're going to score at 1/2. So place it in your scoreboard with 6 inches across the top, score at 1/2. Again, I liked having these with the scallop edge, so I'm going to take my punch and do it on the bottom of each corner. So I'll do that real quick to all 4 pieces. And the last one here. And the last paper you need to cut and prepare are the 2 pockets. So you'll need 2 of these. They measure 5 1/8 by 2 1/2. And whenever we do pockets, we usually score on 3 sides. Sometimes 2, but usually 3. So you're going to place the 5 1/8 inch side across the top of your scoreboard and score at 1/2 on each end. So you're going to place it in your scoreboard, score at 1/2. Turn it around so that 5 1/8 is still at the top, score at 1/2. Then you're going to turn it so that the 2 1/2 inch side is across the top and score at 1/2. So do that to both pieces. I'm going to move this. So now let's prepare all of our pieces. Being I have the pockets in my hand, let's go ahead and do that. So when you're working with a pocket, you miter the top, and then you cut out the square at the bottom where the 2 lines intersect. It made a square. You need to angle that though. So I just do a straight cut. Don't cut into the corner of your pocket though, like so. Do that to the other side also. So it looks like that. And do that to both, and then I burnish it after I have done my cutting. And I like to use Teflon burnishing tools when I am doing the burnishing on my score marks. So just bend it on that score. Give it a good burnish. It's nice to have it nice and flat. Do that to both. Okay. So let's go back and work with the original flaps. It's going to have the waterfall on it. These were the 5 by 5 1/2. We scored twice at 1/2 and 3/4. And I'm going to take I'm going to miter on just the 1/2 inch. So I'm going to leave the 3/4 inch intact. So just miter on the 1/2 inch part on the top and the bottom. And do that to both pieces. And then it's easier to burnish. Now it's always kind of hard to burnish when you have a small, like a 1/4 inch gap. Oops. So now I have to go back and fold it on the other one here. And so that gives us a little gusset to give us some space as we're adding the flaps on the inside, so it's not buckling. That's the purpose of that light gusset. Okay, so you have the right and the left. So you'll have one score with the gusset on the right and one on the left. And I'm just going to continue burnishing my paper. These are the closures for the waterfall. waterfall pieces, you do not miter. You keep them intact the way they are. There's one side done. There's 3 for each side. Now some people put their pattern paper on before they attach their book. This particular book, I don't think I did that. So if you want to stop and put your matting on now before we attach everything, you can. I'm going to go ahead and construct the book, and then I'll go back and add my pattern paper. When you put your pattern paper on, you can choose a 1/8 inch smaller than the page. You can do a 1/4 of an inch smaller. It's personal preference. I usually do 1/8, but there are times where I do 1/4, and there's been times where I've done a half if I want to see more of the color of the base paper. Kind of depends on the project. See how fast this is coming together? But when it's a small book, that's the benefit. Okay, so now, before we attach the waterfall to our book, we do want to put the waterfall together. So to do that, get your waterfall 6 pieces, these, and get your 2 closures, and get the 2 pieces that had the 1/4 inch gusset. It's easiest for me anyway to use my scoreboard when I'm putting together a waterfall to help keep things lined up, and I turn it sideways. Okay, so we have, in this case, I'm going to be doing the left hand side, so my gusset over here on the left. I'm going to turn my paper. Actually, I'm going to tuck it behind. I'm going to tuck it behind. So I'm working with this on the left. Tuck it, both scores underneath, and then put it on your scoreboard so that you have the 4 1/4 across the top. Okay. So when you do a waterfall, for those of you who don't know, you put glue on that 1/2 inch section. And the important part is that your waterfall lines up and that it lays flat. So to help get it started, by having the scoreboard, the ridges helps keep everything lined up. So bump it up against the top and the side. Make sure the sides line up on the paper, and then you burnish it down. So you open it up, get rid of any excess glue that might be coming out. Now that does not look that even to me. I'm going to redo that one. I like that better. Okay. So now burnish it. Burnish as you go. Open it up and burnish. So now you place the next piece, bump it up right against that 1/2 inch section we just glued down. And I'm going to go right up against there. I'm going to double check that it's lining up on the edges. I'm going to close this, make sure it lines up. It does. Then I give it a good burnish. And the last piece. Bump it up against that piece we just laid down. Double check that it's lining up left and right or top to bottom. I like to lay these down, make sure it's lined up before I burnish. It is. Then go ahead and burnish the whole thing together now that it's all put together. Alright, so we have the gusset on the left, the waterfall on the top. We are going to add our closure, so you just need to find one of your 1 1/8 by 6 pieces. We're going to be putting that 1/2 inch piece, we're going to center it on our base and glue it down. You can measure it, you can eyeball it. That looks like it's about the center to me. So what I'm going to do is lift it up, keeping my hand on here so it doesn't move. Put glue on that 1/2 inch strip. And tuck it under and push down. Now I want to get rid of any excess glue that's coming out. That started to move a little bit. Now we will be putting a magnet on the back of here and on the top of here so that it stays closed. So the magnets that I have, you can use these from the store, Country Craft Creations. These are the what do you call them? Basic gray magnets. They have a smaller size too. The smaller size would probably work. And if you have other magnets, that works too. So I'll go back and do the magnets after I'm done. Now you do the other side the same way, but remember now this is your right hand door, and so you need to keep your gusset on the right. Okay. And so this will be the top right here. Did I do that right? I want to make sure. Left and right. Yep. So now we tuck the score and it's at the top, not up against the left hand side of our scoreboard. Good. Open it up and burnish. Get rid of any extra glue. And do the 2 other flaps the same way. To me, using the scoreboard is the easiest way to kind of make sure it stays lined up. Now I hear that one of the designers on our team for Country Craft Creations does her waterfalls differently. That's Michelle Allen. So if you want to check out how she does hers, I still need to watch. I haven't seen it, but I hear it's a great technique. I think her page, her YouTube is a creative operation. I think she's a nurse, that's why. All right, everything lines up. Okay, so now it's time for the closure. Again, I'm going to eyeball it on the center. So that looks about right. So I'm going to hold on to it. And I will put glue on the 1/2 inch flap and then I will put it down. good. Alrighty. Now you might want to put the magnets on now so that as you're working with your book it doesn't keep flapping open. So I have some cheapy magnets that I have in my stash that I'm trying to get rid of, so they're small. So I'm going to go ahead and use those on my project. I'm going to go ahead and put them on the back of this flap and then put both sides together, the two pieces, and then I'll put tape, push it down so that it knows where to stay on this piece. Let me get it ready and then I'll show you what I'm talking about. I decided to corner around my closure, and you'll notice that I have a magnet on the back of the 1 1/8 inch piece, and then it's on the front cover so that they stay closed. So all I did is I took the magnet set, and I had to add score tape to the back because it did not already have adhesive on the back, so I'm just using some cheapy ones that I had in my stash. So the two pieces are together. I'm going to go ahead and take off the backing of the score tape, and I'm going to go ahead and close it and push down and then open it, and it should be in the right spot. I am going to put a little bit of score tape on it to keep it down and prevent it from moving around. And I'll put a little one on the top too. Alrighty, so now they'll stay closed as we are working with them. So here's my left and my right. I'm going to go ahead and start putting this together in my book. So look at your book, see if there's a certain way you want the front cover to be. I don't think it really matters. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure that you have your gussets in the right spot. So here's my right hand gusset, so this goes on the right hand side. Here's the left hand side. I'm going to go ahead and adhere that one first. You just put, you just put adhesive on the 1/2 inch strip. And I'm going to take this all the way to the edge of my book. So I'm going to fold it down and crease it at the 1/2 inch so it's easier for me to see that I'm lining it up. And I'm going to go, this goes top to bottom. And I want to make sure that my page lines up neatly top and bottom like so. Then I can burnish that down. And if you go ahead and put that gusset back out now, there you go. Got a little bit of glue on that, darn it. Okay, let's go ahead and adhere the second side. Put glue on the 1/2 inch strip. I'm going to go ahead and push it so that I just see that 1/2 inch strip. Go all the way to the edge of your book. Make sure it lines up top and bottom. Press down. Got some excess glue to wipe up here. And really give it a good burnish. So that's what your book looks like from the side. Top, bottom. Okay. So now we're going to open up our book. And we're going to take our 4 5/8 by 5 1/2 inch pieces, and we're going to adhere those on the spine. Here's your spine piece. We're going to glue it right up against but not going over. So close, but don't go over that gusset. And you'll notice that it's a little bit shy of the length. That's so that it doesn't get bent when you're closing and opening this. So let's go ahead and adhere both of these. I'm going to turn this, actually, it's easier for me. And I want to make sure that I don't go over. And then it lines up top and bottom. And if I put this down, yep, looks good. And then I will press down. Get rid of any excess glue again. Okay, so there's one side. Now the right side, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go up to the spine, but don't go over that little gusset. And it should go almost to the gusset on the right, but because we cut it just a hair shorter, it will not get in the way as you open and close. And I'll turn my book sideways again. Looks right. And get rid of that extra glue. I'm notorious for that. Good thing we cover it with pattern paper. Okay, so we have those done. Now we're going to add our pockets. So when you open up the flaps, the pockets will go here and here. So do a dry fit first. It should be able to go from side to side without getting in the way of those score marks from this one. I may have to adjust, because if it closes, actually it's okay. All right, it works. But if it doesn't, you might have to move your score over just a hair to make sure that it will lay down flat and not buckle when you close your two flaps. And I'm going to bring it down to the bottom. And make sure that closes. And it does. Now I can burnish. Very good. Now the other side, do the same thing. Again, you want to do a dry fit first to make sure you don't have to adjust your scoring. You can't go over any score marks. This one seems to actually fit a little bit better. The other one was kind of close. Good. Now I can burnish. Alrighty. So now the only thing we have left are these narrow flaps. If you want to cover them first, again, you can before you adhere them to your book. I am not. So I don't know if I'm gonna do it like so. Put them on the inside. Yeah. Now you're going to center them. Now you don't have to miter these because it doesn't go from end to end on your book. So you can keep those intact. So you're going to center it and glue it at the very top and make sure that it goes down to the bottom without hanging over. And again, you can eyeball it or you can actually measure it. I am going to eyeball, and I'm going to put the other one here on this flap. Okay, and do that to the other side as well. All right, let me show you. There's my two flaps, and the other side is exactly the same. And so now it's time to prepare our closure. And so on my closure, I used double seam binding and then tied. And I'm going to do the same thing for this book. So I'm going to go ahead and I cut 4 pieces of seam binding, 2 pink and 2 cream colored, and I made them about 12 inches long. And I'm going to go ahead and put the pink ones in my hand here and squirt them with water and just kind of roll them up and crunch them up. And I'll set those aside, do the same thing with the cream color. And ball them up, get them crinkly and vintagey looking. All right. So you'll need a cream and a pink for each, the top cover and the bottom cover. I'm going to take a peach and a pink and a cream color and just put a dab of glue in between the two so that they stick together as I'm working with them. Okay, just kind of pinch that for a second. Now you can eyeball the center or where you want this, and I'll put it in the center, and I'm just going to put a line of glue in the center of my book, and I'm going to press that down, and I want it to be as flat as possible, and I may have to go back and trim these so that it lays flat. Let me use better scissors. And when you flip it over then to do the back, it's going to be easy to identify where to put them because you're going to use this as a guide. So again, I'm going to put the 2 pieces together. I'll put a little dab of glue to keep them together. Pinch them. All right, and then I'm going to look to see where this one is, and I'll put my line of glue to line up. Place that down. Give it a second to dry. Now I'm going to go ahead, and because I want it to lay flat and because I haven't put my pattern paper on, I'm going to go ahead and put a piece of seam binding, or excuse me, score tape, just to kind of lay it down flat, and so it won't go anywhere. And I'm going to do that on the other side also. That will help with the bulk. All right. And you guys, that's it. Your book is made. How nice is that? This one looks a little bit better just because I did make the spine a little bit bigger. When you compare it to the original one, there's just a little bit more space for when you add pictures. All right, so now it's time for you to go back and embellish and decorate. I'll just do a real quick walkthrough of this one again so you can see how I put the pattern paper on. There's my front cover. There's the back cover. I went ahead and matted cut aparts, put them on the top of the closure. Okay, both sides open. Did fussy cutting, left them open when I glued them down to put in cut-aparts. Flaps do not need magnets. And then both of these open with pockets. All right, that was a nice, quick, and easy little booklet, like a brag book, mother's book. If you have questions, let me know. Again, that's going to sit nicely inside of this box, and I will add some little decorative envelopes also. All right, thank you for joining me, and if you guys have any questions, just go ahead and put them down below. And the paper collection can be found at Country Craft Creations, and I'll see you till next time.